I pretended to be supportive of my son's career while secretly sabotaging every opportunity. The guilt hit me like a freight train when I found him crying in his room after another rejection letter arrived. My 24-year-old son had been trying to break into the entertainment industry for 3 years, and I had been his biggest supporter on the surface while being his worst enemy behind closed doors. Every audition he mentioned, every contact he gave me to potentially help with networking, every opportunity that came his way, I had been systematically destroying them all. It started when he graduated college with a degree in theater arts, something I had reluctantly supported because I wanted to be the cool dad. But deep down, I was terrified he would waste his life chasing impossible dreams like I had done in my 20s. I had spent 5 years trying to make it as a musician, playing in dingy clubs and sleeping on couches, before finally accepting that I needed a real career. The memories of those hungry nights and constant rejection still haunted me, and I couldn't bear the thought of my son going through the same pain. The first time I sabotaged him was almost accidental. He had gotten a call back for a commercial and asked me to drive him because his car was in the shop. I took a wrong turn deliberately, making us arrive 20 minutes late. He was devastated when they had already moved on to other candidates, but I consoled him, telling him there would be other opportunities. The relief I felt seeing him safe from potential failure was intoxicating, and I realized I had found my mission. Over the following months, I perfected my methods. When he would tell me about upcoming auditions, I would secretly call the casting offices pretending to be his representative and cancel his appointments, claiming he had gotten sick or had a family emergency. I learned to mimic his email writing style and would send unprofessional responses to potential agents who reached out to him. When he landed a small role in an independent film, I called the production company and told them he had been arrested for drunk driving, which got him immediately fired. The hardest part was watching his confidence slowly crumble while maintaining my facade of unwavering support. He would come home dejected after what he thought were failed auditions, not knowing that he had never even been given a real chance. I would make his favorite dinner, give him pep talks about perseverance, and even offer to help him practice his lines. The cognitive dissonance was eating me alive, but I convinced myself I was protecting him from a life of disappointment. My methods became increasingly elaborate as time went on. I started monitoring his social media accounts and would contact anyone in the industry who showed interest in his work. I would pose as a concerned friend or family member, warning them about his supposed unprofessional behavior or substance abuse problems. I even created fake social media profiles to leave negative comments on his demo reels and headshots, hoping to discourage him from pursuing certain opportunities. The breaking point came when he finally landed what seemed like his big break. A small theater company wanted him for their lead role in an off-Broadway production. The pay was minimal, but it was exactly the kind of opportunity that could launch his career. I watched him rehearse his audition piece for weeks, his eyes bright with hope for the first time in months. He was so talented, so passionate, and I knew he would nail the audition if he got the chance. 2 days before his audition, I called the theater company and told them he had been hospitalized with a serious illness and would be unable to perform for at least 6 months. I provided fake medical documentation and everything. They were very understanding and even sent him a get well card, which arrived just as he was preparing to leave for his audition. The confusion and devastation on his face when he called them and discovered what had happened was something I will never forget. He spent the next week trying to figure out what had gone wrong, calling everyone he knew in the industry to see if someone had spread false information about him. I helped him investigate, all while knowing exactly what had happened. The paranoia that began to creep into his voice when he talked about his career was heartbreaking, but I told myself it was better than watching him suffer through years of rejection. But then something unexpected happened that changed everything. His younger sister, who had been away at college, came home for spring break and immediately noticed how defeated he had become. She had always been the more observant one, and she started asking questions about his recent string of bad luck. I tried to deflect her concerns, but she was persistent and began conducting her own investigation. She discovered my deception in the most devastating way possible. While using my computer to print something for school, she found a folder labeled Work Contacts that contained all the emails I had sent pretending to be my son, canceling his auditions and poisoning his professional relationships. She read through everything, and when I came home from work that day, she was waiting for me with printouts of my crimes spread across the kitchen table. The confrontation that followed was unlike anything I had ever experienced. She didn't yell or scream, but her disappointment was palpable as she calmly explained how she had pieced together my systematic campaign of sabotage. She had cross-referenced the dates of his canceled auditions with my calendar, noticed how my work trips always seemed to coincide with his biggest opportunities, and even found evidence of the fake social media accounts I had created. My daughter gave me an ultimatum that night. I had 24 hours to confess everything to my son, or she would tell him herself. She also demanded that I spend the next month actively trying to repair the damage I had caused, reaching out to every contact I had sabotaged and explaining the truth. The thought of facing my son's anger and disappointment was terrifying, but the alternative of having my daughter expose my lies was somehow worse. I spent the entire night rehearsing what I would say, but nothing could have prepared me for the actual conversation. When I finally sat him down and began to explain what I had done, his initial reaction was disbelief. He actually laughed, thinking I was making some kind of twisted joke. But as I provided more details and showed him the evidence, his expression slowly changed from confusion to horror to a rage I had never seen before. He didn't speak to me for 2 weeks after that conversation. He moved in with friends and refused to answer my calls or respond to my messages. My wife was devastated when she learned what I had done, and our marriage nearly fell apart as she struggled to understand how I could have betrayed our son so completely. The house felt empty and cold without him, and I finally understood the true weight of what I had done. The real shock came when I began the process of trying to repair the damage. As I called various casting directors and agents to explain my deception, I discovered something that made my stomach drop. Several of them told me that they had been so impressed with my son's talent during his brief interactions with them that they had actually been planning to offer him opportunities before I had sabotaged those relationships. One casting director even said he had been specifically looking for someone with my son's unique combination of skills for a major production. I realized that my son hadn't been failing because he lacked talent or wasn't cut out for the industry. He had been failing because I had been systematically destroying every chance he had to succeed. The opportunities he had been losing weren't long shots or pipe dreams. They were legitimate chances that could have changed his life. My overprotectiveness had actually created the exact scenario I had been trying to prevent. When he finally agreed to see me again, it was only because his sister had convinced him that he needed to hear my full explanation. I told him everything, including the details about the opportunities I had destroyed and the industry professionals who had been genuinely interested in working with him. I expected him to explode with anger, but instead, he just sat there in stunned silence for what felt like hours. The most painful part of our conversation was when he told me how my sabotage had affected his self-perception. He had begun to believe that he was fundamentally flawed, that there was something wrong with his talent or his approach to the industry. The constant rejection had made him question everything about himself, and he had started to wonder if he should give up on his dreams entirely. Hearing that his self-doubt had been artificially manufactured by my actions was almost too much to bear. But then came the twist that nobody, including myself, had seen coming. As we sat there in that painful silence, he suddenly asked me to help him understand exactly what I had done to each opportunity. At first, I thought he was just torturing himself with the details, but then I realized he was actually strategizing. He wanted to know which bridges could still be rebuilt and which relationships might be salvageable. His reaction completely blindsided me. Instead of wallowing in anger or self-pity, he began to see my sabotage as a roadmap back to the opportunities I had destroyed. He started making a list of everyone I had contacted, asking me to explain exactly what lies I had told so he could craft appropriate responses. His resilience and determination in the face of my betrayal was both inspiring and heartbreaking. Over the following weeks, he began the process of rebuilding his career with a methodical approach that reminded me of myself when I was focused on a project. He reached out to every casting director I had lied to, explaining the situation with remarkable maturity and professionalism. He didn't throw me under the bus or paint himself as a victim. He simply explained that there had been a misunderstanding and asked for another chance to prove himself. The response from the industry was surprisingly positive. Many of the people I had contacted were impressed by his honesty and his handling of such a bizarre situation. Some even admitted that they had been confused by the conflicting signals they had received about his availability and professionalism. His transparency about what had happened actually became a networking advantage, as people remembered him as the guy who had handled such a weird family situation with grace. Within 3 months, he had booked more auditions than he had gotten in the previous year. The theater company that had wanted him for their lead role was so impressed by how he had handled the situation that they offered him an even better part in their upcoming season. A talent agent who had been put off by my fake emails reached out to him directly after hearing about his story from a mutual contact. The most unexpected development was how our relationship began to heal. As he achieved the success that had always been within his reach, he started to understand why I had been so afraid for him. He didn't forgive my actions, but he began to see them as coming from a place of love rather than malice. Our conversations became more honest than they had ever been, with both of us acknowledging the fears and insecurities that had driven our behaviors. My wife and daughter watched this transformation with a mixture of relief and amazement. They had expected our family to be permanently damaged by my betrayal, but instead, we seemed to be communicating more openly than we had in years. The crisis had forced us to confront issues that had been festering beneath the surface for decades. The real turning point came when my son landed his first major role in a regional theater production. As I sat in the audience on opening night, watching him command the stage with the confidence I had tried so hard to protect him from losing, I finally understood what I had almost taken away from him. His talent was undeniable, his passion was infectious, and his success was entirely earned through his own merit. After the show, he found me in the lobby and did something that surprised everyone. He thanked me, not for sabotaging him, but for ultimately forcing him to develop the resilience and determination he needed to succeed in such a competitive industry. He said that having to rebuild his career from scratch had taught him valuable lessons about perseverance and had made him appreciate every opportunity more deeply. The guilt I carry will never fully disappear, but it has transformed into something more productive. I now channel my protective instincts into actually supporting his career in legitimate ways. I help him prepare for auditions, drive him to callbacks, and celebrate his successes without trying to control his failures. I have become the father he deserved from the beginning, just several years too late. Looking back, I realized that my biggest mistake wasn't trying to protect my son from failure. It was assuming that I knew better than he did about what was best for his life. My own fears and insecurities had blinded me to his strength and potential. I had been so focused on preventing his disappointment that I had almost guaranteed it. The entertainment industry is brutal and unpredictable, and my son still faces rejection and disappointment regularly. But now when he comes home dejected after a bad audition, I know that his failures are genuine learning experiences rather than artificial barriers I created. He handles setbacks with a maturity and grace that I never had at his age, and I am genuinely proud of the man he has become despite my interference. Our family is different now, but perhaps it is better. We talk more openly about our fears and insecurities, and we support each other through challenges rather than trying to prevent them. My daughter has become a fierce advocate for her brother, and my wife has found new respect for his resilience. We have all learned that love sometimes means letting go of control and trusting the people we care about to make their own mistakes. The story doesn't end with my son becoming a huge star or achieving fame and fortune. His success is measured in smaller victories, steady work, positive reviews, and the satisfaction of pursuing his passion without artificial interference. He may never become a household name, but he is building the career he always wanted on his own terms. As for me, I am still learning how to be a supportive father without being a controlling one. I catch myself wanting to intervene when he faces challenges, but I have learned to ask myself whether my help is truly needed or just a reflection of my own anxieties. The difference between protection and sabotage is often thinner than we realize, and I am committed to staying on the right side of that line. The hardest lesson I learned is that our children don't need us to prevent their failures. They need us to support them through those failures and celebrate their successes. My son's talent was never in question, but my faith in his ability to handle disappointment was lacking. I robbed him of months of potential growth and success, but I also inadvertently taught him that he could overcome even the most bizarre obstacles. Today, when he calls to tell me about a new audition or opportunity, I listen with genuine excitement rather than hidden dread. I offer encouragement and practical support without trying to control the outcome. I have learned that being a good father means trusting your children to write their own stories, even when those stories include chapters you would rather they skip. The guilt will always be there, but it has become a reminder rather than a burden. Every time I feel the urge to interfere or protect him from potential disappointment, I remember how close I came to destroying the very thing I was trying to preserve. His dreams are his own, and my job is to support them, not to sabotage them in the name of protection.